And all we're doing with the over exercise or not exercising at all is repeating patterns that once worked for us, even when they no longer serve us. Your resilience in your younger years is very different than it is in your 40s and your 50s. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you don't want to miss any content that's being dropped, make sure you hit that notification bell as well. I also want to know who are the people you want to hear from on this show and what topics would you like me to continue to cover. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. I am so excited that you took this time out for yourself to learn something about your physical and mental health. You should feel really good about that. And we are back to the basics. Today, we are talking about your relationship with exercise. And as you can imagine, we're not just getting into the basics. We're getting into the root cause around your struggles with exercise. Now, in my program, we have women who really struggle with pulling themselves back from exercise. They think that they need to be doing the high intensity CrossFit classes while also training for a marathon, while also doing Pilates. They think that more is more. We also have people on the opposite end that tend to struggle with getting into an exercise routine, and they oftentimes talk themselves out of the exercise because that is what they're used to. Both create a lot of negativity in general in their life. One is overdoing it and never letting the body rest, while the other is underdoing it and not respecting that our bodies should move. And obviously there are so many benefits to exercise, whether there's numerous benefits to strength training, as you've heard me talk about over the almost 2 years that we've been doing this podcast. There are numerous benefits to cardiovascular training, obviously for cardiovascular health, and even walking. We know that that is good for us. But again, for some people, they're completely overdoing their exercise, and for others, they are underdoing it. And today, we're not even just talking about it in regards to the motivation behind exercise, because as I said, a lot of you listening are consistent with your exercise. You like exercise. You feel like you're the disciplined person. However, motivation isn't the issue when it comes to those two extremes that I talked about. The relationship that we have with exercise, whether it's going all out or doing nothing, is shaped by much deeper things. It's shaped by how your body learned to experience stress. It's shaped by control. It's shaped by punishment, reward, and your self-worth. And so for a lot of people, we don't see exercise through this lens of something deeper. We just associate it with pass or fail, good or bad, enough or not enough. And exercise with that mindset will always feel compulsive or impossible. So we'll talk about that. So for a lot of us early on in our lives, movement started as something external. Now for me, I started dancing at 3 years old. And I did not come from a household that was focused on body. However, being exposed to an industry that was very body focused, I remember being very young and wanting exercise equipment, doing crunches nonstop in my room, and trying to do like different videos on exercise on top of dancing 4 to 5 days a week for 4 to 5 hours at night. For a lot of us, exercise starts in a gym class, a sport. We'll have comments from coaches. I know a lot of dancers who have been weighed. Obviously, gymnastics, cheerleading. One of actually Dr. Trapp, her cheer squad weighed them. and they had to be under a certain weight. We had the stupid presidential timed mile that we had to go into, which then caused us to compare to our friends. And we got praise and we got criticism. I remember in gym class, I think it was my freshman year of high school, they did a body fat percentage test on us. And this isn't necessarily exercise, but it was part of gym class, and like I think it's like a 15-minute mile you're supposed to do, and the sit and reach and the pull-ups and all of that. And I, at the time, was 16% body fat. And I thought that was really high. It's not, by the way. 16% is insanely lean. However, my girlfriend, one of my good friends, she was higher. And I just remember her literally breaking down and crying. And so not only was PE, focused on movement, but it's also, and you're fat, right? So very few of us were taught to use movement as a way to take care of our bodies from the inside out. Most of us learned that what we looked like was created by exercise, and therefore exercise was a way to change our bodies. And depending on how much we put our worth into the way we looked, obviously affects how much we exercise. And I can attest to that. I used to be a complete over-exerciser. I would go to F45 in the morning or in the afternoon, and then I'd go to the gym in the morning. There were days where I did 2 one-hour classes in a row just to see the calorie burn on my watch go up. Now, at the time, I was also very dialed in with my nutrition, so I was really lean. However, I wasn't doing anything for myself by adding in these extra workouts, and I didn't realize it until I got injured. And my body said, hey, we can't do this anymore. You're going to need to sit out. And that's the truth for a lot of women. For them, movement was the only place that they felt successful or valued in their life, and their bodies learned to cling to it. I work with so many ex-athletes. I work with ex-dancers. I work with ex-gymnasts, and movement was their sport. But again, it was the thing that made them feel successful. So a lot of those women are very similar to me. They push and push and push. And there's something about being in a sport that emphasizes like pushing through injury, pushing through. I remember us laying on the ground and having like massive knots in our back and just getting an elbow straight into that knot by one of the girls in my class. And you just kept going. You pushed through. I rarely remember sitting out when it came to dance or even cheer. I mean, I remember in college, I had a girl clip me with her elbow right in my temple, and I fell to the ground. I was dizzy as fuck, and my coach was terrible. So she's just like, she's fine. And my best friend Tiffany was like, no, she's not. And I just like got up and I was like, it's fine. I probably had a concussion, but what did I do? Got up and kept going. And that's the mentality. So there's this weird sense of like, I'm so strong because I can just push through when I probably need to sit down. But anyway, so later in life, exercise for me and for you doesn't show up neutrally. It shows up super loaded. It's loaded with all of this shit. The criticism, the praise, the success, the failure, I've talked about this before, this kind of grandiose sense of self that like, look at me, look at everything that I can do. Or you're so afraid of pulling back because you have such a terrible relationship with the way you look that you're doing the exact thing that's keeping you in a body that you don't feel good in, which is overdoing it. Or the opposite. I have people who don't have a good relationship with exercise. They were never taught that movement was healthy for them, or they've witnessed their own parents like go on these massive kicks and it wasn't fun for anybody in the family. So why would I try to exercise when I'm looking at my parent who's just like miserable? Or they tried to put you in a program that you didn't like, but they wanted you to lose weight. So you were doing Zumba classes or whatever it is. And that created a negative relationship. And I want to say both are technically negative, but like how my brain functioned in the overexercise was like, this is so good. I'm so good. Like, I'm better than everyone else. Whereas the other person is like, this fucking sucks. I hate this. I don't like it. And I don't want to do it. So, I shouldn't say or the next time you go into, like, you want to be healthier, you're learning that exercise is good for you, you don't have any parameters around it. So you try to go balls to the wall until you burn yourself out because, as I've mentioned in many other episodes, if you're going from nothing to everything, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. So for a lot of women, they show up with exercise, as I've talked about, with the intensity and rigidity. It's funny. This morning, I had a news segment that I did here in Arizona, and I woke up at 4:30. My current schedule is wake up, I do my Bible study, then I write in my like Panda planner. I get up, I work out. I knew, because right now the sun doesn't come up till like 7:15, and I like to walk Liberty when the sun is up. So I like to walk the dog when the sun is up. So I knew, okay, my news segment, I had to be there at 8:45. So I said, okay, if I don't finish this workout by 6:30, then I'm just going to have to cut the last couple of sets. And there was a part of me for a second there that said, no, you can't do that. You need to finish the whole thing. And of course, for me, because of the person I am, I was like, shut up. If you don't have to finish the whole thing. But what I ended up doing is I did end up finishing it. And then I walked for 15 minutes on my treadmill, ate my breakfast, got Liberty, walked her for 30 minutes. Again, another thing that I normally be rigid on. Our walk is 2.5 miles. This morning, I could only do 1.5 miles because that's all the time that I had, because then I got home at 7:30, gave me an hour to get ready, get in the car, get to the studio, started filming at 9:15. But I wanted to talk about that, like rigidity. Earlier me would have been like, absolutely not. Like, and then I would put myself in a position where I'm late, I don't feel my best. And why? Because I needed to get in the last set of, I'm doing supersets, last set of whatever it was that I was doing. But yes, that's what I would have done. And that's what a lot of you do. We decide it has to look one way. Even just listening to my morning, obviously this week is going to be exhausting for me. I shouldn't say that. If I don't allow myself to take rests and to have that time to bring myself out for air, it could be exhausting. But what would I do? I would just push through the exhaustion. For me, I would train even when my body was not recovered. And I would have poor sleep. And I've said this on here before. I used to get up and go work out if I couldn't sleep. When sleep is where our body recovers. Also me, I used to feel very anxious if I didn't work out. I would beat myself up in my head. I would say, like, you need to figure it out. Like, you need to figure out how you're going to get this workout in. And on the surface, like I said, it looks very disciplined, but underneath the surface, it is driven by fear. Fear of losing control, fear of weight gain, fear of becoming lazy, fear of not being enough. And I know that is true for me. For other women, they experience, again, the opposite. Exercise feels heavy. It's avoidant. It's overwhelming to them. And they know they should, quote unquote, move, but their bodies and their minds resist it. For them, that's not laziness either, right? It's a nervous system that's never learned that movement was safe or supportive for your body, like I talked about. They're usually the ones who saw their parents overdo it, or they were put in programs that didn't have the right balance of rest and recovery, or they watch people online. This is big right now on social media for those individuals who are trying to create a healthy relationship with exercise. I was actually listening to Mel Robbins on my walk this morning, and she had talked about that. I mean, she's got all these experts on talking about how important exercise is. But she said, this year I really struggled with getting exercise in. And it made me think, well, what are you doing? What are you saying in your head that is telling you I can't? And she talked about travel and being in hotel rooms and this, that, the other thing. And I thought to my head, I'm like, wow, she would be an excellent client of mine because I could teach her how to do this. But for so many people, they don't do it. So what's important to understand is that neither of these patterns are you failing by any means. You've just adapted to what you know. You've created this relationship with your body that you've learned that you relate movement based on what has helped you in the past, right? Helped you survive, helped you feel like you belong, helped you feel like your body is loyal and good or bad, right? And all we're doing with the over exercise or not exercising at all is repeating patterns that once worked for us, even when they no longer serve us. And I want to say something about that because as we get older, I see so many women trying to hold on to a routine that worked in their younger selves. Your resilience in your younger years is very different than it is in your 40s and your 50s. And also, you being sedentary is going to look very different than in your 20s, than in your 40s and 50s. And that's something I really want to hone in on because we attach ourselves, we almost think like our bodies respond the same to things when they don't. I mean, you're not the same person at all. And you take into consideration things like postpartum, take into consideration pregnancy, take into consideration perimenopause. These are all big changes in our lives, and the way that our body responds to movement is going to change. And again, I'm talking about adding it in because we know to be independent throughout your life, you need to move. You need to strength train or pulling it back, right? These patterns that we used to do, they no longer serve you. And this is where your mental relationship with activity and your physical relationship activity collide because exercise isn't seen as something you do with your body and for your body. It's something that you have an opinion of your body about. And it requires or has this feeling of pressure. It has a feeling of stress. And our nervous systems don't like stress, as I've talked about many times. So then we're stressed out. We're doing this thing. We're doing it to control the way we look. We're doing it to control how we feel about ourselves. And until we renegotiate the relationship that we have, no program, no class, nothing will feel sustainable for you. We have to renegotiate this from the inside out. The other thing I want to talk about is when movement is led by this control or aesthetic, right? It can disconnect you from your body, as I've kind of mentioned. You'll stop to notice how tired and fatigued you are. You may override your hunger cues, which I've talked about in the past episodes. You may ignore pain. And we're chasing a look or a number instead of the feedback that our body is giving us. So it's funny because I've had a few injuries, but when I was overdoing it, I tore my labrum in my hip. Now, I think that was an injury that was happening over time, but because I was just doing so much, and let's be honest, when I'm doing the F45 and I'm overtraining and then trying to train in the gym, my form was compromised, and your form is probably compromised too, because you're just looking for calories burn, no matter how I get there. But your form will be compromised, therefore, in my case, injuring yourself. And it was so bad, you guys, that I was on the floor in the fetal position. I thought I had kidney stones. And it took 6 months to diagnose. Finally, I got an MRI, and it was this tear in my labrum. And I'm not going to lie, it hurt for a long time before I ended up on the ground. And I wasn't paying attention to it because I didn't want to take time off. And at this time, I was the leanest I'd ever been. And in my brain, I thought it was the exercise that got me there. Now, yes, it contributes, but again, it was the food. But I didn't want to like lose my physique, so I didn't listen to myself. The body will always push back, whether you're sedentary or you're overdoing it. It'll push back through burnout. It'll push back through injury like me. It will make you so fucking tired that you don't show up for yourself. Or for those who don't have a good relationship with exercise in regards to like being consistent with it, it will push back through elevated labs, heart disease, not feeling like you can climb up stairs, feeling like you can't get off of the couch, can't get down on the ground with your kids. It will push back in that way. Again, when movement is led by this avoidance, right, it disconnects us from your capacity. Exercise is so amazing in what it teaches you mentally, but when you're not attempting to do it, you doubt how strong you are. You underestimate how resilient your body can be, and you lose trust in what your body can actually do. And for me, I would consider these forms of dissociation, where if I just don't do it at all, I don't have to deal with it, and I don't have to understand me. I tell a lot of people exercise is the first time you've actually been in your body if we're doing it correctly. When I have people pull back, slow things down, focus on what's actually happening, extension and flexion, stretching your muscle basically and contracting it, like that's what you're supposed to be doing. But when they don't feel themselves and then they get injured. But when we do, they're like, oh, I really felt, because what happened the other day? I gave a client a cue and I told her, oh, I want you to pay attention to she was doing a deadlift. And I said, I want you to pay attention to pushing into the ground. And she had never had that cue before. And she said, oh my gosh, like I feel so much better when I'm thinking about that. And I can really feel it in my hamstrings. I'm like, great. And that's her connecting back to her body. So a supportive relationship with exercise isn't about, doing more, doing less. That's going to benefit a lot of people, but it's changing really the way that exercise plays a role in your life and moving away from punishment and exercise being something that is solely there to change the way I look, because if I do that, then I'm good. We're moving away from that and moving away for exercise to be a place where we get a sense of control. I was called by the guys from Mind Pump, which is one of the best top health and wellness podcasts in the world. And they called, but one of them texted me and just said, hey, can I call you? I was like, yes. So he called me and he told me about this caller that called in who had left the acidic Jewish community that she was raised in. She divorced her husband. She basically was shunned by her community. However, during the time where she was feeling very lost in that community, she started exercising. And she exercised so much that her hair was falling out. She couldn't even go on vacation with her kids because she couldn't get out of the rigidity of her system. And when the guys had suggested, because this was a caller that called into their show, that she just pull back, she started crying. And they are very intelligent men. They realized like there's something more here and asked me if I would take her on. And I did. And for her, it was a tool for control. She learned to control something in her life because in her religion, most things were told for her. How she would dress, what she would watch, how she would act, who her friends would be, who she would marry, all of that. So exercise gave her a sense of control. But the problem with her name is Rachel, is that it increased her anxiety. And she needed more and more and more of the exercise in an effort to feel better, right? But what we ended up doing is helping her feel the void that exercise was filling. And that void for her was figuring out what she actually can control in her life, which were her thoughts, her feelings, her wants, and her needs, being able to make choices, bringing her back into her body in other ways other than exercise. Because again, when we're told how to act, what to do, what not to do, who to love, we don't trust ourselves. And so exercise was the one thing that she can do. And she was able to recreate that relationship based on supporting her. Exercise became a way to take care of herself while she also had other tools that helped her in the other areas. It provided her a sense of, it was an example of her strength and of her resilience by pulling back and saying, I'm allowed to rest. My life, I'm in control of. And, she talked about it because we actually had an episode on Mind Pump where she and I spoke to them about her process. And she talked about going on vacation and actually being with her kids. And her body started to cooperate. She looked amazing. Her hair was, full. Her skin tone was great. I mean, she's a beautiful woman, but just a 180. And that could be true for you as well. And this is why, we're looking and talking about sustainable exercise beyond just me telling you what plan to use, because that's really up to you. But what I want to say is that sustainable exercise never starts with intensity. It really starts with giving yourself permission to begin. And what I mean by begin is figuring out where you've been and then looking if that has served you. One of the favorite things that we say to people on their first call is, yeah, and how is that working for you? Because they say it's not. I'm like, okay, do we want to do the same thing over and over again and get the same result? Or do we want to try to do the hard thing and get actual results? They say, I want to do the hard thing. All right, let's get into it, right? And learning where we've been, whether that is sedentary or overdoing it, and then focusing on the facts. Is this working for me? Probably not. That's why you're here. And then being able to say, okay, what do I want? How do I want to feel when I'm exercising? What are the things I do want to get out of it? And listen, guys, aesthetics could be one of those things, but it shouldn't be the only thing, right? It should be one of the things. But again, there should be other reasons that you're working out. Ask yourself, how do you want your body to respond to exercise? I mean, for me, I want to strength train and build muscle. And I know because of my education what that requires. I need to feed myself well. I need to rest. I need to have an amazing recovery program, if you will. And that brings me so much joy to know that, because my entire life, since 3 years old, I had no fucking clue. And now it's like my rest days are a part of my program. Which is true. They're a part of my program. They're not me going against my program. And that's something I want you to be thinking about. Another thing to ask yourself, this is a really great question, is what kind of stress is exercise creating? Now, for me, it's creating a proper amount of stress. Exercise is a stress on the nervous system. You're stressing a muscle. The muscle then adapts to that stress, the stress being the load, right? The weight that you're putting on it. And over time, as that muscle adapts to the stress, you get stronger. So what does that mean? Say that my lateral raise is 15 pounds and I'm doing 50-pound lateral raises at 10 reps. Maybe my rep range is 10 to 12 reps. Once my body starts adapting to the 15 pounds times 10 reps, it will get stronger, and then down the line, I'll be able to get to 11 reps and then 12 reps. Then I might come back down to 10 and move my weight up. Now, a lateral raise for most of us we're going to get stuck there for a while, but our body is adapting to stress. However, for some of you, exercise is creating not great stress in your life. It is dictating your day. And you think about, do I have the time to do this today? Can I cut it down? Because what I was talking about this morning is I did not want to show up to that news segment frazzled. I mean, already speaking on the news is a little stressful. I mean, the more I do it, the easier it becomes. But I did not want to be frazzled. And I knew if I did not give myself that hour to get ready, I would be frazzled. And you know it too. You try to fit your hour, 15-minute workout into a day that doesn't have an hour and 15 minutes to spare. Maybe it has 30 minutes to spare. So what kind of stress is exercise creating? And then on the flip side is, I don't want to die. I know that sounds, crazy. I've just got really bad news about my lab work, and I'm concerned. What kind of stress does being sedentary have on you? In answering that question, the next question I want you to ask yourself is, does this build capacity or does it drain it? Exercise for me, again, is just proving to myself that I can do really hard things. And I have the new injury with my knee. I have a tear in my meniscus and my ACL. And it's been kind of cool because I actually rehabbed myself. And I am back to this morning. I did 170-pound squats to box because I'm being cautious of my knee. My 1 rep max has ultimately been like 215. And the 170 pounds was times 6 reps, which I was like, hell yeah, this is great. I'm not pushing it. We'll never do that because the injury hurts like hell. And so it is the type of exercise I'm doing is building my capacity for change, my capacity for rest, my capacity for healing. But if I was to overdo it and try to go back to that 215, it's going to drain me and it's probably going to re-injure my knee, right? So I want you to ask yourself those questions. When you have movement that aligns with you, it does something very specific to your body. It strengthens your body and increases your tolerance for stress. So I talked about what the body actually does, but if you think about that as a metaphor for life, I put myself through this hard thing and it's difficult, especially if you're doing it right. What I mean by that is not choosing the light weights, like choosing heavy weights and lifting heavy shit to the point where you might have 1 or 2 reps in the tank, but you're dropping those weights. They're hard. And you realizing, I never thought that I could pick up the 35-pound weights for an overhead press. And you do it. And you feel fucking awesome. That is a metaphor for life. That is a metaphor for the things that you've been terrified to do. And you gain confidence in the gym in not the ways that we think. Yes, it can help us change our aesthetics, but being able to do hard shit and see it, and hopefully you're tracking it so you can be proud of the changes you're making. Maybe you get out of that relationship that's not served you. Maybe you leave the job that you absolutely hate. Maybe you take on a hobby or go to the women's group that you're afraid to go to, or go on the news and speak. I mean, there were many times where I was like, should I call out sick? But it was awesome. It was such a good segment today. Being able to build your tolerance for stress in your life. Also, you're going to build your metabolism, because when we build muscle, especially with strength training, our metabolism increases. We're going to be able to take our stress in the day-to-day and project it into something that is also good for us. But remember, overdoing it actually creates more of the negative stress, if you will. I think of exercise as positive stress. So we want to find that balance. Again, as we continue to do hard things and we prove things to ourselves, it improves our confidence in ourselves. And it allows us to, again, just take on our day in such a positive way. And over time, by focusing on these things, focusing on building that tolerance, focusing on how exercise helps you build confidence, focusing on the level of stress that, and everyone's level of stress with exercise is going to be different. For most of the women I work with, 3 to 4 days of training is a sweet spot for them. I'm currently training 5 days a week because, just full disclosure, after my dad died, I lost a lot of weight. and not a lot. I lost like 10, 13 pounds, which is a lot. And I was flat as fuck. I did not like the way my body looked. It's kind of crazy because I've cut before for like photo shoots and stuff and trained hard. And the difference in my body composition was wild to me. I've actually weighed less this past 4 months than I have in a long time, but I didn't look as sharp as I used to. So I'm training 5 days a week and eating at maintenance to get my muscle back. But coming back to you, once we, focus on those things, exercise stops being something we have to force. It stops being something that we hate, and it starts being something that supports you and who you are becoming. Whether that is the woman who says, I want to listen to my body. I want to be in myself. And it is okay for me to pull back and recognize, like I do, that recovery is a part of my program. It's not a failure to it. Or I want to be a woman who walks 20 minutes a day. Start small. If you need to, go back to the basics, goals and systems. That will be a great place to start. And that's where we change, you guys. That's where exercise becomes this wonderful tool in our life that is going to help us be independent as we get older. It will help us with hormone regulation, insulin resistance, metabolism, mood. I mean, exercise can be such a wonderful stress reliever, but again, it shouldn't be the only stress reliever. It should not be the only thing you do to take care of yourself. We need to have a variety of things that we do, which obviously we're talking about in these back to the basics. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation. Just so you know, I don't talk about this a lot on this program, but we do have the Mindset of Movement on-demand training program. And this is a training program that changes every 4 weeks, but you get access to each of the workouts for 8 weeks. So I will be changing them come February. So you'll have access to January's workouts until the end of February. And what the program is it's all based on your time and your energy. And I've created a 5-day split for the gym and a 5-day split for dumbbells if you work out at home or you just prefer dumbbells at the gym. For those who don't have 5 days, there's a 3-day full body split. Still great workout because you're still working those same muscle groups almost the same amount of time, the way that I have it set up. We have 3-day time crunch, 20-minute workouts, which are a little bit more high intensity, but still a great workout. We even have body weight and band workouts for those who are new to working out, but also those who are traveling or, don't have as much time and they don't want to get all their equipment out. And then we also have a core add-on. So I will link that in the show notes below. It is $29 a month, and you get the first month for free for being a listener to this podcast. So definitely want to check that out. Other than that, if you love this episode and you have that one friend who isn't getting off the couch or can't get their ass to sit on the couch, please share this with them. You can hit that share button right now and send it to your girly group or your bestie. I would love that. That helps me so much, as well as making sure you're following this podcast wherever you're listening to it or that you're subscribed to that YouTube channel. My goal is this year, I want one of those fucking YouTube plaques. So we need to get some more people following and doing all the things. I've been loving your guys' comments. They are amazing. They make me feel so happy. So please continue to comment. And if you haven't already, I would love a 2026 5-star rating and review. Other than that, I'm going to send you on your way today. And I will leave you remembering that what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.